Hi, I'm Janelle, and this is Janelle Knows Money. Welcome to my channel. I am a finance geek and an HR professional, and I'm here to give you different tips and tricks when it comes to those two things. Today we're going to talk a little bit about salary negotiations. And first I just want to kind of go through what gives me the right to talk about salary negotiations? Like, why am I someone that could give you advice? First, I am somebody who has worked on the front end of salary negotiations. I used to be a recruiter when I first started my career in HR. Now I'm more so on the back end of that. I work in compensation. So I have a lot of experience from that standpoint. I've also negotiated my own offers as well as helped my friends negotiate offers and help them get paid more on multiple different occasions. I also have my master's, and I've taken a conflict resolution and negotiation class where we specifically focused on this type of thing. So today in this video, what we're specifically going to be talking about is how to determine that initial ask. So before we're even talking to, a recruiter at all, how are we coming up with, the ask that we're going to give them? And then second, we're going to talk about, when the recruiter talks to you and is like, what are your expectations from a salary perspective? How you're going to present that to them, what you're going to say, what that looks like. And then thirdly, we're going to talk about, what types of things you can negotiate. I think you hear different things about, what different items are off limits and are not. And I have a lot of experience with, seeing people negotiate different things, and I've done it myself. So we're just going to go through that list and talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, we're going to talk about, once you are given that initial offer, how to negotiate with a recruiter from there, or the hiring manager from that perspective. We want to make sure that you're getting paid what you're worth. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is determining the ask. There are 3 different ways that you can do this. You can choose the one that works best for you. You could do all 3 if you want and make a combination of all of those details. It's really up to you. So the first one we're going to talk about is doing, a mini salary analysis. Doing salary analyses is something that, us comp professionals will do in the back end. We do have, very specific data to help us do that. But just for the average person, there are ways that you can do that with the resources that you have. So the first thing that you're going to want to do your mini salary analysis is just open up Google. You're going to want to Google the title of the position as well as salary. So then you're going to find various sites. You can use, LinkedIn, you could use PayScale, salary.com, Glassdoor. I recommend compiling 3 to 5 of these. From there, you're going to open up a Google Doc, a Google Sheets, or an Excel document, and you're just going to write down each one of those, in column A. And then in column B, you're going to write the median pay that you got from each one of those websites. When you're looking at websites, just something to keep in mind is that they're not always updated on a regular basis. So if you find, one website that's reporting a salary particularly low, you might just want to check to see if, maybe that salary was reported in 2018 and you're looking for data in 2021. So you might just want to throw that one out. So just make sure you're checking the dates on those. So after you've found 3 to 5 sources and you have the median pay for the job title you're applying for listed, you're just going to take an average of that. And then that's going to be, what a good target for that position is. The second option would be to do something similar, except you're going to add the company name that you're specifically applying to it. So, you would do company name, title, salary as your Google search. We're finding now that sometimes these sites will take it upon themselves to do an estimate for what that job should be paying. So sometimes on LinkedIn and or other sites, I believe one's called The Ladder, you'll find that they have a range listed there for you. You can find multiple sites that are listing a salary range for this position, do a similar thing, list all of those sites in Google, and then take an average to say that's what your target would be for that position. And then the last thing that you can do is you can use your network. So if you know somebody in your network that previously has been in a position that you're, looking to apply to, you could always ask them, if you feel comfortable, what they've made in the past in that similar role. And then you could also ask people that are currently in that position right now. The most incredible thing that you could have would be if you knew somebody at the company in that specific position and they could tell you, what they're making or what that range looks like for them. And then you can see if that's something that like you're still interested in, if it meets, the requirements that you're looking for a salary. So after we've done our research to figure out what the target range is for the salary that you're applying for, we're going to present that ask to a recruiter. If you haven't interviewed before, you may not know this, and if you have, you've definitely had this experience before. During your initial phone screen, a recruiter at the end of the call is going to say, and what are your salary expectations for this position? This is an extremely important part, of the phone call, because we want to make sure that you're getting paid and we don't want you to get stuck in a box. We also don't want you to lowball yourself, even though, we've done all of this research. It's still possible that the company's range for the position might be higher than, what you estimated it was. Some people will even tell you not to answer this question at all, which is, completely fine. Definitely a viable option, but at the same time, the risk that you run into by not answering the question is going through an entire interview process, getting really excited about a job, getting really excited about, getting an offer from that position, and then you find out that, your salary expectations for the position and your value are much higher than what they had budgeted for the position. So we want to make sure that, you're not wasting any of your time either during this interview process, because as much as they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them. There are different options out there, and we need to make sure that we're finding the one that fits best for you. So here's what I would recommend when going through this process. So if you do want to stick to the stance where, you're not telling the recruiter a number, I would let them know that you're not quite ready yet. Let them know that you want to continue through the interview process, you're really excited about the position, that you're not quite ready to give a salary range because you want to continue to learn more about the job. And then I would request that you ask them to say, like, is this okay with you? Could we revisit this after I've had a few more interviews? Typically a recruiter is going to say yes, but every once in a while you'll get somebody that's a little pushier. Just depends on the person that you're working with. And if that does happen, they might push you for a range. This has definitely happened to me before and can be a little bit frustrating from a candidate perspective. And that's not always ideal. So what you can do is you can kind of try to reverse it on them and say, I'm still not comfortable, answering the question as I need to learn more about the position to like appropriately price the job. But if you could let me know what you've budgeted, I can then relate to you whether or not, we're aligning in some circumstance there. Kind of placing the onus on them will get them to back off in some sense. If you're really wanting to stick strong to not giving an answer right off the bat. That said, if you are in the boat of wanting to give a more definitive number, I would recommend letting the recruiter know up front that you're happy to give a range, but that, as you continue through the interview process, your expectations might change. As you learn more about, what the hiring manager is looking for, as well as what the team's expectations are for the job, you might realize that you are okay with something higher, something lower. It really just depends on, what your needs are here. And then you could get them a recommendation from there. You could let them know, I've done some research, I've talked to my peers, as well as looked at multiple reputable sites, and my range would be from X to X. I wouldn't recommend giving more than a $15,000 range. I would keep it around like a $10,000 range. And then I would absolutely make sure that that bottom number that you're giving is the absolute lowest you're willing to accept for the job. Sometimes people will immediately go there. Not every company is like that, but some of them definitely are. So again, I would just recommend making sure that you would be okay with that bottom number if that's, what you're giving them. If you give them that range, I would definitely then ask after you've given them, is that within your budget? I've definitely been in the circumstance where I haven't asked that question. I've given a range and they didn't, give me any pushback on that range. So I had assumed that, their budget was within the same range. And then I got through the entire interview process and they had given me an offer that was $10,000 below what my minimum ask was, letting me know that that was the top of their budget and the best that they could do. which after you've invested all of this time interviewing at a company can definitely be a bummer. So don't hesitate to ask whether or not, what you're looking for is within their budget. Sometimes they think they can sell you on the company. At the end, it won't matter to you that, their offer is lower than what your expectations are. So I would definitely not be afraid to ask that. It's definitely an appropriate question to ask somebody. And, if you are giving them that range, they're telling you that that's a little bit high, the range that you've given them. I wouldn't hesitate, to let them know whether or not that's something you're interested in. You might get done with the initial phone screen and it might be that, it's just far too low for what you're looking for. And it's okay to, step away from the interview process at that point. If it is a job that you're so excited about and you definitely want to be involved in and you want to continue the interview process with, even if your ranges might be a little bit off, you can let the recruiter know that your range is flexible, that you're still really excited about and interested in the position, and that you understand that compensation isn't just about base salary, that it's about total compensation, and that there are different pieces of the puzzle that might make up for that range, and that you'd love to continue on with the process. So I guess kind of going off of there, we can talk about then, the third aspect of what can we negotiate, even, going into this process. Sometimes people think it's just the base salary, but that's not true. There are other things that you can negotiate as well. So absolutely negotiate your base. I think that's incredibly important to know. But there are also other things too, right? Like some companies, depending on, the sector that you're working in, will have a target bonus, which is usually some type of percentage of your base. And companies, depending on company performance, will pay that bonus out at the end of the year. So they might quote you, say, a 10%, target bonus as a part of your base. I would definitely, ask if you're interested in that target bonus being a little bit higher, whether or not it would be a possibility to move it up to 15% or 20%. As a part of that conversation too, I would definitely make sure to ask whether or not their bonuses pay out, because they might be taking a large part of, what your salary expectation is and kind of sticking it into that bonus piece. And if the bonuses haven't paid out over the past 3 years, then you're going to be pretty disappointed when it comes down to what your annual compensation looks like. Another thing to consider is equity. If you're at a public company, depending on what the program looks like for the organization, you might be eligible to receive some type of stock award or grant. If you're leaving a company to go to another company and you're leaving some equity on the table, it's definitely appropriate to ask them in some way to true you up. I've seen organizations do that on multiple occasions. They'll do some type of sign-on grant for an individual that's, perhaps losing $10,000, $50,000, or, more dollars by leaving an organization and leaving their equity there. They'll make it up by doing a $50,000 grant at the new company. So that's definitely a possibility. You also can ask about whether or not they have an annual grant program. This is very similar to a bonus in that you sometimes will either get a dollar amount or a percent of your base that will be funded to their equity program on an annual basis. Not all companies do this, just some do. So it's just something to inquire about with the recruiter, whether or not that's an option for you. Some companies will also keep it at, director and above, but not everywhere. So definitely keep that in mind. Another thing that you can negotiate is PTO. This is something that I've done before. Every company has a very different PTO policy. And if you're moving from, one company that you've had like 24 days at, and you're moving to another company where, if you've only been there 1 to 3 years, you get 12 days, and then you don't hop up to, say, the 24 days until you've been there 3 to 6 years, something that you could request is being automatically bumped into that second tier. That's something that companies are definitely open to doing. So absolutely ask about that if it's something that, means a lot to you, and if PTO is, really important to you. Another thing that I have seen negotiated is paid leave. A lot of companies don't do this, but, for the women out there who are interested in having a child, are expecting, sometimes if companies don't have a super, lucrative paid leave policy, you could negotiate that into your contract. Another option would be just like a signing bonus, generally speaking. I've also, seen come up. In the circumstances that I've seen this is if, you're moving from one company to another mid-year. And in that mid-year move, you're going to be losing a part of your bonus from the previous company. You could ask, your new company to make up for that. Another way that you could negotiate if they're not open to doing a signing bonus would be to ask them not to prorate your bonus for the year that you're, moving to that company. So as an example, if you were to move from one company to another in June, typically they would prorate your bonus from June to December. So you would only receive half of that bonus. You could ask that they not prorate half of that bonus and that you'd be eligible for the entire year of a bonus. People are pretty open to that. Or again, you could go to the signing bonus basis saying, hey, I'm missing out on half a year of this. Would you be open to, granting me a sign-on bonus for that purpose? Let's move into negotiating the actual initial offer that you're getting. Once you've made it through that entire interview process and you're at the end of it and a recruiter's giving you a call, letting you know, congratulations, we're so excited that you're joining our company. We'd like to offer you this title, reporting to this manager. Here is the compensation we would like to provide you with. Typically they'll, give you the base salary as well as a target bonus, whether or not that's applicable. And then sometimes they'll also tell you about equity as well as other benefits included. If they're not telling you about the benefits, definitely ask what those look like and request a benefits guide. Typically they'll send that along with it. This entire time that they're, presenting you an offer, definitely just be attentive, listening, taking notes about what it is that they're telling you. Once they've finished presenting the offer, I would definitely let them know how thankful you are and how excited you are about the opportunity, but that you would like to review the official offer letter and that you would also like to review the benefits guide, prior to accepting the offer. Recruiters are, typically very used to this. A lot of times they're happy to give you overnight. Sometimes they'll present offers on a Friday, so you'll have the entire weekend to kind of review those materials. This is also a great time, to let them know if you are interviewing with other companies, if you haven't already, and that you might need some additional time with the offer if you need until the end of the week, if you have some additional, interviews coming up. Again, recruiters and hiring managers understand and know that you're, in this recruiting process and it might not just be with them. So they're typically pretty understanding of needing some additional time to review the offer. So once you've closed out the conversation on your verbal offer and you have a timeline in place for getting back to the recruiter or hiring manager, that is great. That's fantastic. So whether that's the next day, it's the following Monday because you have the weekend, or the end of the week, I would send an email to the recruiter the day before you're due to have a conversation with them and let them know, that you have a few questions about the offer specifically. You can present your negotiation in an email. However, I would recommend if it's, a larger negotiation point, like a base salary increase, equity, or like a bonus target increase, to do that live over the phone. People do like having those conversations face to face. If it's something a little bit smaller, like PTO, you want to be bumped up to the next category, then typically that's an ask you can make in an email, and people can get back to you pretty quickly and get your offer revised if you're, okay with the salary and the bonus, and you can sign off and you can be done with it, which is fantastic. So then if you do want to negotiate the salary, which I think everybody should, why not? Then, like I said, send them an email, let them know you have a couple of questions about the offer. I do think it's good to let them know in that email that you were hoping, to negotiate, or ask them whether or not they would be open to negotiation. This kind of, sets kind of a baseline for the conversation you want to have with them. I think sometimes when people know that that's the conversation they're about to have, they're more open to having it. They come off a little bit less defensive, and they just know what to expect when you're about to have a conversation with them on the phone. So then let them know, ask them if they're open to negotiation. Typically they'll say yes. You'll schedule a call back and forth. You'll get on the phone with them, and then what? You're on the phone. I would let them know, again, how excited about the opportunity you are, that you are very interested in joining the team, but that you had a few questions about the offer. If it's, about the salary, you can start there and you can let them know that you had a different, number in mind. If you didn't offer it at the beginning, you could then, tell them at the end, I was thinking around X amount, you've offered me here. Is there anything that we can do together to like close that gap? What does that look like? What would be within budget? If you offered your salary expectations up front and they did what they could to meet those expectations, but then after, you went through the entire interview process and you learned more about the position, you feel like it's a higher level job, it's appropriate to be paid more for that position. You could let them know, as I stated in the beginning, as I went through this process, I would be, evaluating what would be appropriate for a salary, and I've, come to the space where I think X would be more appropriate. Are you open to that number? Like, what can we do to get me there? I think something that's really important when you're negotiating is making sure that we're not setting two stances on either side. We want to make sure that we're working together. So again, it's just always reiterating that you're very excited about the opportunity, about the job, and how can we get there together? What can we do to get from point A to point B because I want to join this team? I think that also helps the negotiation process go a little bit smoother. This process can be walked through, with your bonus as well as with any equity that you have. Another negotiation tactic, you can use aside from letting them know that, your expectations were different is letting them know that, your skills, your experience, and your value that you can bring to the team, you feel like is at X number. Another option even yet is letting them know what you're receiving at your current company. So, from an equity standpoint, you could let them know that you would be leaving X amount on the table and that you're hoping that they could meet you to make up for that difference. Same thing with PTO. As I mentioned before, you could let them know, hey, I have 24 days of PTO at my current job. This job is only going to be giving me 15 days. Is there any way we could bump me up to the next category so I'm not losing out on that benefit? It's something that's really important to me. Typically, after you present your negotiation, your counter offer to what they initially offered you, the recruiter will take notes. They'll take that back to their team, and depending on what their budget is currently at, they might have to resend it through the approval process. If you're requesting a higher number than what was originally budgeted for, that could take some time. If the number that you're asking for is already within the budget, the turnaround could be a lot more faster, and you'll find out in the next couple of days. They'll then present another offer to you, and then you can decide whether or not that's like a good fit for you. Again, I want to reiterate, when you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. This has to be just as much as a good fit for you as it is for them. So when you're getting to this stage, it might be that your expectations were $10,000-$15,000 higher than what they're able to offer you from their budget. It's okay to walk away from that offer. I think sometimes when we've invested so much time and so much effort into going through an entire interview process, it's incredibly hard to walk away. You just have to keep in mind that there are other opportunities out there, and there are other people and teams and companies that are going to see your value, and they are going to want to pay you what you're worth. So at the end of the day, even if you counter offer and they're still not able to meet where you need to be at in order to take the job, it's okay to tell them no. You're not interested, and you need to move in another direction at that time. Sometimes that will incentivize companies to then meet you exactly where you need to be, and other times they'll agree that both people have to part and move separate ways. And even though it's disappointing to get to that point, sometimes it's for the best, and the next time you go through the process, you'll have some experience negotiating, some experience going through the interview process, and it will only get better and better. Thank you so much for watching. Just remember that you are your own best advocate. Please leave any comments or questions that you have below. I'm more than happy to answer them, and don't forget to subscribe for more content. Thank you.